Hello, hello. How are you guys? All right. So we are going to get started and we should be good to go. Everything looks great. Okay. So tonight we're going to talk about executive functioning. For those of you who don't know what executive functioning is, this is probably a good live for you. You can jump on, make sure you share this because executive functioning is a pretty big deal in the special education world, but it's kind of a word that's thrown around and isn't taken as seriously as it should. Okay? So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Raven Woods. I'm the CEO and founder of Autism Mama Rocks, the IEP, and I help parents gain the knowledge and the confidence to become the CEO of their IEP meeting. So, for those of you jumping on, make sure you say hello. Make sure you post below your name, where you're from. We want to get to know you. If you're not part of the group, you can put in the search bar Autism Mama Rocks the IEP group and join the group if you choose. And so make sure you post a 1 below if it's your first through third time catching me live, okay? Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. You guys know what to do, right? So for those of you who are new, post a 1 below. So you only get 3 times to do this, okay? So take advantage of it. Post a 1 below, tell us where you're from, and put yourself out there a little bit because we want to get to know you. We really do. Okay, so I want to talk really quick about the fact that last live was amazing in reference to processing. For those of you who joined me live for that, I gotta plug my computer in. And I got a lot of messages on how that live really helped people kind of process, oh my gosh, that's what's going on with my child, because it was a wake-up call for me too in an IEP meeting. Not that I didn't know what it was, I did. But you know how when you're in a meeting and you're looking at things, or if you're anything like me, I'm kind of crazy with this. I look at, the documents and I study them, and even, with the parent and then aside from the parent, and then, right before the IEP meeting, I'm a perfectionist. And then also during the IEP meeting, my mind is constantly going as to which avenue I need to go because I'm always one step ahead of the game. All right, always. And, very rarely am I caught off guard. And because you don't want to be caught off guard. And, if something's brought to my attention or, if something's wrong, if I say something that is, inaccurate, or the parents, a lot of times parents say, I didn't get this. And then they really did. And the school sent it, which is fine, So I'll say, oh, okay, well, thank you for sending that. So, I always try to, treat others how you want to be treated. And then I also, want the school to own their stuff. So if you are, say you said they didn't give you an item and then they did, then own that and be okay with that. The reason I'm telling you about that is because your mind should always be running in an IEP meeting, and then being transparent should be part of that. Okay. All right, so let me say hi to some people first. So we have Aaron and Tony and Derek, and we have Lori and Karina and Dorothy and Kimberly. Oh, I got to tell you about the IEP meeting I had today. You guys know whenever I have an IEP meeting, I got to talk about the IEP meeting, right? So, and then I have Kimberly, Erica, Marlene, Kim, and Cal. Welcome, welcome. I don't know why I put your name up there, Dorothy. I apologize, but I can bring you guys. Look, see, I can bring Erin over. She said hi. I got Lori here, right? I got Derek. All right, so let's talk about executive functioning. So for those of you who are wondering what is kind of in line, there's 7 areas of core dysfunction, okay? So you have self-awareness, you have inhibition. Look, I got my notes. You guys know me and my notes, right? And I highlight everything. So you get self-awareness, inhibition, nonverbal working memory, me and working memory, verbal working memory, emotional self-regulation, self-motivation, and planning and problem solving. Okay. And a lot of children who have ADHD have executive functioning issues and deficits and needs and things that need to be addressed. And let me tell you something. It is something that can be, I can't say fixed, because that's different for everybody, but I can say it can be improved tremendously if given the right, if the student is given the right accommodations and they're in place and they're implemented across all settings. Okay, so at home, mom and dad and whoever they live with do their thing. The school, wherever the child is in school, I don't care if it's music, it needs to be implemented with fidelity of what accommodations are in that IEP. And it's our job as parents to ensure that the school system knows that we are going to ride their butt to make sure that our children are getting what is needed and appropriate across all settings. So start putting that word in your brain, across all settings. Put it into your IEPs, okay? So when you start creating the IEP, that's not your first IEP, okay? Your first IEP is kind of hashing things out and getting things itemized and, putting amendments in place while you have evaluations and whatnot. But what you want to focus on when you create that IEP is making sure that all verbiage is stated accurately and very clear. It needs to be clear, concise. The law says it needs to be with clarity and finality is the word that IDEA uses. Okay, so I always just say, if dropped on the floor or dropped in the middle of the street, a 10-year-old should be able to pick up an IEP and understand what those goals mean, meaning how would it be implemented, how is it measured, and so on and so forth, okay? Because 10-year-olds know how to read, typical children do at 10, and they're able to absorb and retain that information and be able to say, oh, okay, this child can do X, Y, Z. All right. And when I say that with truth in the sense of a 10-year-old should really be able to pick it up and know exactly what is given to your child in regards to goals, what their goals are and what it is that they're working on. Okay. I'm not saying that at 10 years old, just to kind of throw that number out there. I'm being real in the sense that that's how clear it needs to be. And I always say the word, and don't take this personal at all. I say this in my IEPs. Don't take it personal, okay? I need things dumbified, okay? I want them dumbified. And, the thing is when I started with the IEPs, I was like, you need to dummy this down for me because I don't get it, And so don't be ashamed by saying that. I want that and I understand what it means, all right? Dummy this down for me. I don't get it. And, even if you do, still dummy it down, all right? Play the part of, I don't get it. Can you explain that to me? Can you explain that? And if you want answers, ask questions. And when they respond, ask more questions, okay? That is how you're going to get to the bottom of issues, all right? Can you explain this to me? I don't understand what it means. Can you paint this picture for me? I say that a lot. Please paint that picture for me. Tell me what that looks like. All right. One of the things that I said today was I don't like consultations. You guys know that. I think it's a waste of freaking time. And I think that it is completely unproductive. As a teacher, I don't understand how you send in a therapist to teach the teacher during teaching time, taking away time from other children from learning because the therapist is teaching the teacher for 10 to 30 minutes, so on and so forth per grading period or whatever. I mean, what is the point of that? And so I want to know, paint that picture for me. What does that look like? When are you going into that classroom? When you go into that classroom, what are you doing? Are you sitting with the teacher? Have you written something out and you just go hand it to her? Because I know darn well that shit don't happen, all right? That they do not go in and consult. They don't. They send them a freaking email, and that's what happens. They call it a day, all right? I'm not saying that there aren't some that walk into the classroom, walk around, observe, and 5 minutes later they leave. Okay, I'll give you that. But it doesn't happen, all right? It just doesn't. So if your IEP says consult, know that more than likely that's not happening. Okay, and if it is, I'd find out when it is, what time it's at, and hopefully when COVID's over, make sure you go do an evaluation at that time. Really make sure that that's happening. I would, So clarify and make sure those types of things are happening. If they say it's happening, okay, what time does that happen? Then, a month down the road, 2 weeks down the road, just happen to show up at that time. See if it's happening. All right? So, remember I was telling you the last time we spoke and we were talking about processing, and I said there was this amazing IEP that was done in New York by a well-known psychologist, and I was really, really impressed. He has his degree in neuropsychology. And, the mom, after I talked about processing and, I was going through everything in regards to, what he had written, because I was telling you guys about some of the things that he had written about ability and skill and some of these other things. And mom messaged me after. She was like, was that my daughter's, And I was like, yes, I cannot believe how much I love this assessment. And, it's one that I am going to be using across the board for my clients because it's 59 pages and it does every single evaluation and he goes into depth. And I was like, oh my God, I got to teach this because it's such amazing information that parents need to know. So this is what he says in reference to executive functioning. All right. And executive functioning is basically what is the leader of the pack is kind of what I kind of dissect it into. If you were just to ask me, it's what is the head honcho, what shows its face of how your child progresses and walks through life in school. All right. It's what is going to steer them in one direction or another. All right. So that's how I would describe it. So now listen to this. All right, this doctor says executive functioning is a collection of abilities used to strategize, plan, and organize, as well as control and regulate behavior. And that's important to understand is strategizing and planning and organizing to regulate behavior. That's a processing thing. All right, so to be able to function, they have to be able to process information. They have to be able to retain that information. All right. And if they can't, so just take a child with ADHD and they're having trouble with retaining information, focusing. So if you're not focused, you're not going to retain information. So it doesn't mean you can't. It means that you're unable to at the moment because you're not able to focus. All right. So it's really working on that focus so that you can then get other things happening. Right. So you have to really figure out if the issue is executive functioning or is the issue focus or something like that. All right. So I always tell people, make sure you really look at the picture, and it's hard sometimes. And sometimes it's this big puzzle and you just have to kind of check off, this so-called boxes, not that your child's a box, I don't like that, but the box as far as like, okay, I checked this off. Okay. I looked at this. Okay. I checked this off. I looked at this to really narrow down what the issue is. Sometimes it doesn't just show its face and it's an easy all and you just can go to the school and say, okay, it's executive functioning. This is what we need to do, XYZ. Okay, you can't do that with a lot of things. Sometimes it's a matter of trial and error. Sometimes it's a matter of, really asking a ton of questions, having your child evaluated and figuring it out. And sometimes it's frustrating. A lot of times it can be, but getting to the bottom of what the issue is, not, a lot of schools like to do this surface thing, and not to get off task, but me, I got to talk about this for a second. It was brought to my attention recently in regards to assessments. And me right now, just because school's almost over, that doesn't mean you don't ask for assessments. You need to do that like right now, okay? And even if, say, you don't listen to me and you're hearing this, in June, all right? Does that mean you don't email? Absolutely not. I'm already booking, which I have a couple spots available, guys, a couple. You can PM me or you can, WhatsApp me. But, going into the summer is a perfect time to get things together and plan and request an evaluation and request certain things. And then it starts within 30 days of school starting. So your child's not being pushed off till Christmas to start a new fresh year with a new IEP on point, right? So don't think that, oh, it's spring break. Oh, it's summer. I can't do anything. The school's closed. Absolutely not. That's not true. Okay? So here's what came to mind. All right? So, and this is a little bit frustrating. So the PPVT 5, the EVT 3, GFTA, and the TOLD, okay? These are some assessments that are given in regards to language, all right? And they're thrown out there a lot. A couple of them were thrown out today in regards to an IEP I was in. They're not horrible, all right? But here's an issue that I have. And this one, thank goodness, was not thrown out. So if a child, if your child is struggling with, say, auditory processing, all right, and the school's wanting to, or let's just say, you know, there's pragmatic language issues or executive functioning issues, all right, the school may throw out a evaluation called the PPVT, okay? Absolutely not. All right. So if your child has auditory processing, language processing, and mostly pragmatics, and then executive functioning issues, don't allow the school systems to throw out, this is why assessments are so important, don't allow the school systems to throw out evaluations that is going to basically be half-assing it. All right. And so the PPVT is used as what I would call a surrogate, because parents do not realize that it is often used that way. So instead of using an evaluation that's really going to narrow down what the issue is, they'll give an evaluation that doesn't have all those specifics. All right. And then you're kind of left in that like confused state after an evaluation. Have you ever had them go over an evaluation and you're just like, okay. And you're kind of like just, you got questions, but you don't got questions, and you're kind of confused and you don't really know what to ask because it didn't give you enough information. Well, that's when you know that there's a problem. All right. So instead of ignoring that sign that you guys have, all right, that gut feeling or that kind of, if you ever feel kind of airheady in an IEP meeting, know something's wrong. All right. Because that clarity and finality must be had for you across all settings. And if it's not, then you need to put a stop to it because that is not providing FAPE. You are an equal team member to that meeting. All right. To all the other members, they are not any better than you. All right. You're all equal members. All right. What they know, you must know. They can't just show up to an evaluation and say, oh, here's the assessments. No way. You need to know what those assessments say and be able to read them thoroughly before that IEP meeting so that you're prepared and ready to participate as equal team members. All right. So don't allow the abuse that goes on in regards to assessments because they want to not give the information or they want to give it to you. I mean, there's been times where I've been given information the day before. There's been times I've been given the information 20 minutes before the IEP meeting. But you need to know how to handle it accordingly. And I am a stickler with the way things run. So I will 20 minutes before the IEP meeting starts, cancel the meeting based off principle. All right. And principle is you are not going to control this situation. It's going to stop right here. The meeting's not even going to proceed. Then we're going to reschedule another meeting within a 2-week period. Usually it's 10 days because you didn't want to include the parents as equal team members, removing FAPE from the child and also having a procedural safeguard in regards to not including the parent as equal team members, okay, and making decisions that aren't equal, all right? So basically what that means is you were not participating in that information being provided to you. So meaning they were going to talk about it at the IEP meeting. They gave it to you 20 minutes in advance. You didn't have time to read it, so therefore they know things that you don't know, okay? So let's move on. Executive functioning can be thought of, this is so cool, like the project manager, all right, of the mind, overseeing, coordinating, and directing one's behavior. I'm going to say that again. Executive functioning is used to set and reach goals, all right? And executive functioning can be thought of as the project manager, all right, of the mind, so the project manager of the mind, and it oversees and coordinates and directs one's behavior. I think that's interesting. Then we have, as another analogy, and I love how he gives analogies because we understand analogies, right? If someone just threw out their executive functioning, we're just like, yeah, let me look that up, right? So he gives another analogy and he says executive functioning can be thought of like a captain steering a ship. Pretty cool, right? All hands are on deck and everybody has a job to do. And it is the captain who must coordinate everyone's efforts so the ship can get to its destination. Do you guys get that? I had to read it a couple times, so I'm going to read it to you again. All right, so as another analogy, executive functioning can be thought of the captain of the ship. All right, so you got a captain of the ship, and the captain's job, okay, is to make sure all hands are on deck and everybody's participating and efforts are going in together, okay, to make things happen, all right, to get to their destination is what they're saying, all right? So it's really important to understand that, okay, if you're the captain of the ship or, you know, like the other analogy states, like the project manager of the mind, everything has to be working together within the mind to be able to get things done. So now let's look at it in the academic aspect, all right? The mind is a very powerful tool. And if your child is, you know, having executive functioning issues, which is very common, okay? Adults have executive functioning issues, and it's something that is very much talked about, but just ignored in some aspects, all right? So it's talked about in ways that doesn't bring up executive functioning. So it's talked about, oh, you're not remembering things, or oh, he's not processing things, so he's forgetful and he's, you know, he's being irresponsible. If your child's ever being called irresponsible and not doing what they're told, and he's all over the place or she's all over the place, and you know, behaviors are escalating, they're not doing their work, and you kind of are getting this nitpickiness all over the place, that's when you got to think executive functioning or working memory. All right. Visual memory has a lot to do with this too. They're all interlinked and intertwined. Okay. So, because the next thing that goes into play is working memory. All right. So you have executive functioning, which is the head honcho of that ship, who is making sure that everything is going to be in its place. All right. So meaning everything in regards to academics, okay, needs to be in a well laid out plan. All right. So if a child has to write from a chalkboard, all right, and they have to write notes, and then after they write notes, they're told to then go through their notes and say it was something they were writing for to find spelling errors or punctuation and so on and so forth. Then they would have to go and do that. So then they have to process, okay, I got to write this from the board, then I got to go and edit what is on my paper, then I got to write, okay, and edit, and then I need to then read it. Okay, so there's a process, right? So they have to be able to understand the process and how things work, all right? It can also happen with things being told that don't have to do with academics. Let's just talk about transitions. All right, so you have a child in a classroom, they're going to be transitioning to the lunchroom, then they're going to be transitioning to the music room, they're going to be transitioning to PE. A lot of schools have issues, or schools, a lot of children have issues with transitions, all right? Change, all these different changes, all right? So if you're the captain of the ship and all these changes are happening, things aren't going to come in the way they should. You're not going to always reach that destination because you're not processing what should be happening. Why? Because you're not adjusting. They're not adjusting in the way they should, especially children with autism, and then other children with issues and concerns that affect things that they do. I mean, I don't like change all the time, right? Do you guys like change all the time? So it's one of those things where, and make sure you guys, okay, I know I'm talking and talking. All right, so make sure you post a 1 below if you're new, a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie. Make sure you tell me where you're from and say hello. And make sure that you tell me if you want, post, let's do this. Post below, all right, what your child's disability is. All right, let's own that and post that below. And let's talk about those things, okay? Because I'm talking about ADHD, I'm throwing out autism. Post below what disability does your child have? What are we working with here? All right? And so you guys do that. Post who you are, post your name, post where you're from. 1 below if you're first through third time catching me live. Not many of you, right? Is there any ones out there? Post a 2 below if you're an oldie but goodie, okay? All right. So now that we know that executive functioning is the function of pretty much everything put together in order to accomplish a goal. All right. So just like the captain steering the ship, all hands have to be on deck. Everything has to be in its place. Everybody needs to participate, and everybody, meaning the brain and the functions of the brain and everything that is working within the brain. That's the hands on deck. That is how things work. And that's, everything working together in order to accomplish what needs to happen. Okay, so you got to kind of like flip it and make it about the educational piece. But I love this analogy, and I like how he elaborated into what it meant. All right. Ohio, ADHD, anxiety, OCD. We got dyslexia, ADHD, dyspraxia, anxiety, sensory, autism. All right, I love this. Dyspraxia, that is a good one. We need to talk about that because a lot of people do not talk about dyspraxia and a lot of the learning disabilities that are out there because a lot of people just think dyslexia. So there's a lot of them out there. So oldie, but my first grader has autism level 1 and 2. When my daughter was diagnosed, they didn't have that 1, 2, 3 thing going on. But it's interesting how they number them now and then what each of those numbers mean, isn't it? All right, we have autism, ADHD, anxiety, depression. All right, got it. Okay, so I'm going to move this a little bit. Yeah, keep posting, guys. Hi, Kim. How are you? All right, let me say hi to you guys real quick. We got Cheryl, hi, and I have Lori and Tracy. Del Rose, how are you? I can't see your picture. Did you know it's blank? I saw you the other day. And we have Nikki and Cheryl. All right. Cool. Hi, Christina. How are you? Hi, Marlene. Hi, Cindy. All right. Okay. So we're going to move on. I'm going to add some stuff to this whole executive functioning thing. All right. So we're going to talk about how attention is a multi-faceted concept. Hi, Delrose. How are you? So this is important, and I'll tell you why. All right. So it's important to understand that attention is not always, oh, hey, focus, look at me, right? So attention can be simply addressing work, can have nothing to do with a person, all right? So there's attention to detail. There's attention to what's being given to you, your work, your assignment. There's attention to a person, all right? Like children with eye contact or with autism have trouble with eye contact, right? Some of them, not all of them. And, so it can be a focus there. I know with my daughter, I'll say, okay, when she was younger, I would say, look at me in my eye, look at me in my eye, and I'd have to repeat that. And would have to teach her how to do it. And so it's important to make sure that you understand that attention is not always, oh, your child's not paying attention. Don't ever listen to something that comes out of somebody's mouth in reference to your child, all right? And you know me, I say it how it is, okay? So if something flies out of someone's mouth in reference to your child, You don't just think, oh, your child's not paying attention. Oh, your child is just doesn't care about school. That they keep getting up, they keep walking out of the classroom, they keep talking back, they keep throwing their pencil. They are not doing their work. They're escaping from the work that they're being given, meaning they don't want to do it. Get to the bottom of that. All right. Don't just let that fly out of their mouth. Something needs to come out of your mouth. And what needs to fly out of your mouth is, why do you think that's happening? Throw it back. All right. Not, hey, mom, this is what's going on, which you want to know, but they throw it on you like you're supposed to, go babysit them in school. No. So you throw it back to them and say, well, what do you think needs to happen? What do you think's not working? Why do you think my child is doing that in the classroom? What's happening when my child is escaping from their work or walking out of the classroom? Who's going after them when they walk out of the classroom? That would be one of my questions. So ask questions, dig deeper, find out what's going on. That's going to give you a lot of insight as to what is happening during the time that your child is whatever it is that came out of their mouth, whether it be focus or attention or whatnot. Don't just let it be left at your child's not doing this, okay? Find out why. Children don't do stuff just to do stuff. They don't. There's a reason. It may not be a reason we like, but there's a reason, okay? And sometimes, even if we don't like it, we have to somehow make sense of it because we're not them. And we can't control what they're doing in that sense. Okay, let me take that back. All right, we can't control what they're thinking and why they're doing something. Okay? It's okay. I believe that our children with disabilities should be allowed the opportunity and the space to be able to think the way they think, to be able to adapt in a world that may be different for them, and to be able to acclimate themselves in a way that makes them comfortable. And I think that not always is something that they do or a reaction that they have going to make sense, but we need to somehow make sense of the reasoning as to why it was done. So then there can be some clarity on the teacher's part, because I'm going to tell you, as a teacher, we are not trained, okay? I'm a mother of a child, this is how I know, but we are not trained in, the specifics of a disability. And if you think for 1 second that a special education teacher is, you're out of your mind. They're not, all right? Many special education teachers right now, not all, many right now are provisionally trained. They're not even licensed right now. It's very difficult to find really good special education teachers. Districts are really struggling. Find out if your child's teacher is a licensed teacher. You can look on the DOE website to look up your teacher's name and, be able to see if they're licensed. When their license runs out, you can look at all that stuff. And it's important to know, if your child's teacher is a special education teacher, if they have any ongoing training, all of that stuff, okay? Because there is no specified training for a special education teacher. You're a teacher and you're thrown into a special education class because that's what you want to do. That's it, all right? And then you have ongoing training as a teacher, all right, that you can get where it comes into play. This came up at, the IEP meeting I was at today, but it also comes up, as you guys know, because I talk about it all the time, where teachers say, oh, I have training in this. And I'll say, oh, that's awesome. What is the training? A lot of times teachers will get ABA training or discrete trial training, and they'll say they have training and they're taught ABA, all right, and how to implement it. So when I ask, oh, that's great. What is your training? It's a 2-day training, 40 hours. I'm sorry, that's one of my expertises. And, that reading and children with autism and function and those types of things, And so I am no expert in many things, but that I know. And so I said, oh, that's interesting, and I've said this in many IEPs. Can you show me that training. I want to see what it is that you do. All right. So today I got, okay, I'll get you the training. So we'll see if I see what it's going to be about. But bottom line, typically that training is not sufficient. All right. It's not a training that qualifies somebody to go and implement discrete trial in a way in which the child is going to learn and in a way that is productive. Because if it is not implemented with fidelity and in take away the educational terms, just if it's not implemented right, then it's not going to work. So then it becomes a argument of, what's the point? Why are you doing this? That this is stupid. Why are we doing this? You're doing discrete trial is not always easy for a child or even for the person doing it. And it can be very tiresome and gruesome for a child. And so if it's not done properly, we're putting our kids through a type of training that is very effective for most children, if done right. The problem with today is that many times people are not trained appropriately and it's not being done right. And then we have ongoing issues of either the child's not progressing, because if you think about it, with many children, again, not all, if discrete trial is done in a way, because ABA therapy is and has been the #1 based therapy that has so much research and science behind it of what works. All right. And school systems have to provide any type of therapies, things that work, that has science and research behind it, peer reviews and so forth. And so a lot of parents will just go after, I want ABA therapy, I want ABA therapy, I want ABA therapy. And nowadays, schools are saying no, because it's not being requested in the right way. But on the other end, they're realizing that parents are getting smarter and that they're unable to teach and educate the educators in enough training to where it's sufficient and called highly qualified, all right, as IDEA states. So they're not going to be highly qualified with 40 hours of training, right? So parents are getting smart and we're saying, no, 40 hours. I mean, anybody can do 40 hours. That doesn't give them the ability to go do discrete trial. I mean, I wouldn't want to do that, if I had 40 hours to go and do discrete trial with a child, you know what I mean? So it's like, why does a teacher feel comfortable with that when there is a certain way of doing that? And 40 hours just gives you a little overview. It's kind of like how Orton Gillingham, which I'm certified in, and Orton Gillingham has two beginning programs. One is a 1-year certification in direct one-to-one instruction. That's where my expertise is. Then there's another one that is direct group instruction. So anywhere from 3 to 8 children, something like that. I don't know. That's not where my certification is, but it's something around that. Well, Orton Gillingham also does a training for teachers. All right, so you got to watch out for this and listen to what's being told to you and then question it and ask for their paperwork. You can ask if they say, oh, yeah, I'm trained in XYZ. So, can I see your training? Can I see your paperwork, your certification, etc.? You can ask for that and they have to provide it to you. All right. So make sure that you do that and don't be afraid to question things that may make you feel funky inside. I was saying this to my parents today. It's okay to feel funky inside. If you're feeling funky inside, it means you're asking the right questions, all right? Because we're not always comfortable asking questions that make us uncomfortable or feel uncomfortable or may make somebody else feel uncomfortable. But in this type of situation, we have to ask those questions and those hard questions so that we can find out everything that we need to find out in order to help and best serve our children, all right? So, in regards to working memory, and I'm not going to go into this, we have a huge live on that already, but I will most likely talk about it again. But working memory, remember this, working memory enables one to keep track of information mentally, all right? An example of which would be listening to a history lesson and keeping track of multiple names of people and countries, all right? And so that's important to remember. So you have executive functioning about steering the ship, all hands on deck. And the goal is to get to the destination. For in regards to education, it's all hands on deck. The goal is accomplishing and getting to finishing the work, finishing a test or an assessment, whatever the case may be, okay? It could be finishing the PE test. Whatever it is, it's something that is put forth, effort that is put forth by the child, all right? And the way in which the information of what the child has to do is processing within the brain and then how they're acting upon it, okay? So it's almost like the information comes in, it's processed, and that's where that processing issue can come. You know, we spoke about that before. So you got this issue of the information's coming in, that's the receptive, right? So if there's speech issues, everything's cut off at that point. All right. So if there's speech issues, and this was brought up today, oh my God, I was going to lose my freaking mind. I never want to hear from any therapist or anybody else for that matter that a child does not need a service that is desperately needed because they don't want to take them out of the least restrictive environment. Are you out of your ever-loving freaking mind, people? Come on now. You can't put them in the least restrictive environment until they work on this. And taking them out of the least restrictive environment is not going to hurt them. You're taking them out to give them knowledge and things that they need, speech, vocabulary, something that they need forever in daily life and functional living, to then go back to the classroom and have what they learned over here implemented so that they can progress. But if you take this away, then this ain't happening. You know what I mean? So if you take speech away, least restrictive environment is going to go away. They're going to be in a more restrictive environment because they can't function in the least restrictive environment because speech was taken away. I mean, hello, there's like a process to this. And it drives me crazy because, you know, I actually had an OT say this today. And she said, well, we don't. And then she goes on to say, so she said that, you know, she doesn't believe the student needs XYZ because she feels that 20 minutes every other week is sufficient. And she went on to disagree with me, and even though we got what we wanted, disagree with me on the fact that 20 minutes was sufficient because she was doing consultation with the teacher. But yet, she could not answer my question of what it is she was doing with the teacher. She would not answer that question. I noticed that she kind of ran around that one and she wouldn't answer what she was doing. Oh, I go in with the teacher all the time. Oh, I talk to the teacher all the time. Oh, I go in there and, I do training with the teacher all the time. But what the hell are you doing? I hear you. But what is it you're doing? Explain that to me. What does that look like? Are you going in there saying, hey, how are you? What's up? What'd you do last night? Or are you going in there and, laying out some plans of action and speaking in reference to this one child? Or even better, and I know this is happening for a fact, we'll just leave it at that, okay? Trust me. That they'll go in there and talk about all kinds of students in that classroom when it's your child's 15 minutes or 30 minutes. Oh yeah, that's happening too, y'all. So you have to pay attention to what's going on. You have to ask those questions of what is it you're doing? Explain that in depth to me. Keep saying, get really good at saying, I don't understand. The more you say you don't understand, the more they have to explain. The more they have to explain, the more you learn. All right? So you're digging and digging and digging and digging. The more you dig, the more you're going to find out. Okay? And if you don't understand, they know by law, you have to understand. All right? So use that to your advantage. I don't understand. Can you explain that to me? I don't understand. I did not get that. No, that went over my head. you know? So, and they love it when you do that. Okay? So you're making them feel smart, which they are, but what I mean is your job as the parents, caregivers, whatever, are to find out what's going on, okay? You know something's not right. You know something's not working effectively. You know progress isn't being made. Whatever your situation is, all right? So asking questions makes somebody feel like, oh, I can help them out, all right? But really, we're finding out, we're digging for information. You guys have to become lawyers, okay? You have to become your child's lawyer, all right? And so your job is to what? Ask all the right questions, to obtain all the right answers, to then create a case. That is what you're doing. If you think that you're doing anything else but that, you're wrong. You are creating a case to then go what? PPPN, my whole signature system, right? Which is registered and trademarked. You have to be able to plan, prepare, present, persuade, and negotiate in the right way in order to get things done. All right. So many of you probably haven't even heard of my PPPN system. It's plan and prepare. Okay. If you can't plan and prepare the right way, you ain't getting to the next point. All right. Then you plan and prepare. All right. Then you got to present. What? You're presenting your case. All right. How do you start that IEP meeting? How do you run the IEP meeting as the CEO? You run that meeting. You want them deferring to you to run that meeting. All right. That's how it should be because you are the parent. You are the most knowledgeable at that table. And nobody else could say otherwise. Ask them. Ask your team. Who here thinks they know my child better than me? No one would answer that because they wouldn't want that answered in reference to their children because they know that you know more. And, I was speaking to a team today and I said, it would be really good, and it was a teaching time for me. I really like if I have a team that's open, to teach them in a very nice, kind way how to be more open to parents, okay? And it's important because so many parents, even the parents in this situation, okay, as parents, we don't know what to come out and say immediately. We don't know educational verbiage, And so when a mom, specifically a mom, no offense, dads, okay? Or grandmas or anybody else, but a mom. I'm talking to you moms out there, all right? So you know what I mean. When we got those gut feelings, all right? We know something's not right because it's like this sick pit of our stomach kind of feeling, all right? And we may not be able to pinpoint it, but we know something's not right. That's usually when I hear from parents, all right? And so I trust that instinct very much, and I run with it. And then I just talk and talk and talk and ask the right questions for the parent so that I can then get the whole picture. All right. So in talking to this school, I said, if a parent ever comes to you and says, I feel, which guys, don't ever do in an IEP meeting. Stop saying that. Never say, I feel. I'm going to lay it down for you. Okay? No one cares how you feel. All right? Don't humanize yourself in that way in an IEP meeting. You're creating vulnerability, and you don't want to do that. Sounds completely irrational of me to say. It sounds completely nuts in my mind. But in reality, it's the truth. Don't put yourself in a vulnerable position because then what happens? Sorry, I'm talking too much. It's kind of like, when you allow a 2-year-old, all right, you can have the candy, you can have the lollipop, and then each time that situation happens, they're going to expect a lollipop, right? So, you've heard of the word, if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile and all those different things, right? In this situation, that's true. I'm drinking sleepy time tea, so if I fall asleep on you guys, I apologize in advance. No, I'm just kidding. So I said to them, if a parent ever says, I feel, maybe dig a little bit deeper. Maybe instead of, and this was me talking to the school system, I said, maybe instead of looking at it as they're just throwing out their opinion, you guys got to remember subjective and objective data is night and day. Subjective meaning your opinion. I feel is an opinion. How you feel is not always, fact in regards to the situation in academics. All right. Because how you feel and how I feel could be completely different. All right. If I was the teacher and I heard the mom say, I feel, all right, let me just put myself on their side. All right. Because I was the teacher. And so you said, I feel. And I said, well, I feel this way. I'm the one teaching her. That's not how it is in the classroom. That's not what's happening in the classroom. And I'm just kind of closed-minded of, well, that's not how it happens with me. I don't know why you're saying that. Have you ever had a teacher just get completely offended because you brought something up and brought something to the table that was factual, but you didn't mean to come across as, hey, it's your fault and be accusatory. But at the same time, you weren't going to not bring it up, right? So you have to, and I said to the school, I said, you have to be open to what parents have to say. And a lot of times when they feel a certain way and they say those things, I feel, that means this isn't right. This is what a parent, tell me if I'm wrong. All right. So if you feel that your child is not listening and not doing their work, and the reason is that they're unable to focus because there's too many distractions, or they're not getting enough one-on-one attention and they need one-on-one. Okay. And so you're sending a message and saying, I feel like my child needs a one-on-one. That's why they're not paying attention. That's why they're not focusing. That's why, behaviors are happening. I always say one-on-ones are for safety, behavior, and redirection. All right. Start saying that to yourself. If you want a one-on-one, safety, behavior, redirection. All right. No other reason. Safety, behavior, redirection. So redirection's focus too. All right. So if you're wanting that, but you're coming across saying, well, I feel that my child needs a one-on-one because of X, Y, Z. Well, no one cares how you feel. All right. So I was telling the school, I said, ignore the I feel and look at what they're asking for. What is it they're saying? So this goes back to your child. Your child's having concerns, issues, deficits, whatever. Are we going to just look at the surface, kind of like your I feel, which is surface? All right. Well, how you feel, okay, I feel my child's acting this way because of X, Y, Z. Well, it's not how you feel that's important. What's important is why you feel that way. Why do you feel that way? All right. So that's where you guys have to get that oomph in you and say, I feel this way because if my child is doing this, then that is why this is happening. And if this happened instead, then this would no longer happen. Do you see how you're giving them the option of, if you stop doing this, then you're not going to have this reaction? Because I know my child, and I know if you give them this, then this is going to happen. Because then when you take it, it's going to be gone, and they're going to throw a fit, and they're going to have a meltdown, and X, Y, Z, right? So you're explaining a situation to them. You're giving them the opportunity to process, okay, I am giving Samuel, a toy because he was good after he did this assignment. But mom's saying that the reason the behaviors are occurring is because I'm giving this toy as a reward because I think I'm being nice as the teacher, but then I'm creating a behavior because then I'm taking it away to continue the lesson. All right, so whatever the situation is, how you feel, whatever the reason is, it could be a one-on-one, it could be a behavior, it could be whatever's going on, but try to change that. Try to think about how you can word it in a way that is saying, if this happens, have you ever heard does your child ever do the if then that kind of thing? If this happens, you know what I mean? So a lot of kids function that way. All right. If I do this, then I get this. And if I act like this, then I get this. All right. So there's rewards and, so on and so forth. So do that with the teacher. All right. Explain to them if you are doing these things. That's why you have to ask the questions, because you have to find out what it is that they're doing. You have to find out what it is that's happening so that you can then be the problem solver. Okay? So if you have, let's just go with our executive functioning. If the ship ain't sailing right, we got to get it back on track, or what's going to happen? It's going to hit the shore and it's going to be a big mess. It's going to blow up, whatever's going to happen, but something's going to happen. And so we have to get it back on track. All right. So I loved that analogy, because if we got a ship sailing over here and we really need to go over here, what is it we're going to do to sway it to this side? What is it that needs to happen? So our job as parents is to figure out this gap. What is it that needs to happen in order to handle sensory issues, in order to handle ADHD and maybe focus issues, or repetitive behavior issues that autism has, or any OCD is put on here, and PTSD. Those are issues that are very repetitive. PTSD can have a variety of concerns, because something could literally happen in the classroom that sets that child off because it triggers something. And many other disabilities have that as well. It can trigger your child into doing things that they wouldn't ordinarily do because of their disability. And those are the things that we have to learn to avoid. And these are the things that a lot of teachers just don't seem to foresee and understand. There's many special education teachers, like I said, that are not special education teachers. They have a provisional license, which is just a license that's given to somebody who has a bachelor's degree and that wants to be a teacher but that has not taken the test yet, that has not obtained their license or anything like that. You also have special education teachers that are just long-term substitutes. And you had no idea. You started the new year. You had no clue. You didn't know that wasn't a teacher. And then, of course, you have your good teachers. You're the ones that do know their stuff and that you can actually bounce things off of and whatnot. And sometimes it's not even that teacher that, excuse me, that is the issue. Hold on. I'm talking too much, guys. All right. So let's sum this up. Oh, look, we have Sissy from Alaska. Wow. And Liz from Maryland. Hey, Daisy, how are you? Hi, Audrey. Oh, my God, I got to stop talking, y'all. All right. Who else we got on here? We have Lana. All right. Okay. Look, I choked myself, y'all. Okay. Yes, the gut. You guys are awesome. Oh, my God. Sissy, my grandson had a meltdown coming off the school bus today, and before that, he had ABA service for 5 hours. So when he got home, he just looked at me so sadly and held a hand and said, "Nana, no." Aw. So I comforted him, and now he's good. Let me tell you something about my daughter. Give me a second. Oh, my goodness. All right. So Skylar, she's high functioning. She's maybe in the middle. I don't know. She's kind of she fluctuates, to be quite honest. She's just something interesting. All right. But she's the highlight of my life. She's my youngest of 3. And she has always had, and tell me if you guys have kids like this, she has always had 1 or 2 things. All right. So right now she has a stem where she has this and then she gets herself together and then she's fine. And then she also will like put stuff back into her purse a couple of times. She'll take it out, put it back in, take it out, put it back in, and then she's good. It's like twice. Or like when she turns on the shower, she'll turn it off twice. Like she'll pull it out, turn it off, pull it out, turn it off, and she has to do it twice. Always. So like my husband and I could be downstairs and we know when she's getting out because she pulls it twice. So you hear it, you know, throughout the house. And so it's funny because, you know, all our kids have stuff, right? But she cracks me up in the things that she does. But Sissy, what I was going to say is if something happens to her, all right, throughout the day. So if I make her mad, she always says, Mom makes me mad. and my daughter, she's 24 and she's a teacher. And so she'll say, well, Skylar, why did Mom make you mad? And she'll say, well, she made me mad because she took my phone. Okay. So Elena will then say, okay, well, why did Mom take your phone? And she'll say, well, because I said a bad word. Okay. Well, that's a reason to take the phone, right? Okay. So if she gets mad, all right, she will say to me, sorry, Mom, later on tonight, I'm going to throw a fit in my room. Okay, Sky, cool. No joke, y'all. Later on that night, she will go up to her room. She will scream. It's like, not like scream. It's like this fake cry thing for like 5 to 10 minutes. She'll come back downstairs and she'll say, okay, Mom, I'm done. And that can happen at school too. So say something triggers her at school. Right now she's at Linda Mood Bell. So it was like 2 weeks ago, she didn't get a toy. Like at the end of the week on a Friday, she gets to pick from this box. And she didn't get to pick from this box for whatever reason. And so she came home and went upstairs. She knows to go to her room. She went upstairs, cried for 5 to 10 minutes, and we don't bother her when she does that. We leave it alone. I don't give attention to negative behavior. Unless there's an emergency, unless there's a safety issue, I never give attention to negative behavior. All right? And so she throws her fit. She comes back down. And so she says, hey, Mom, you know, I'm sorry for throwing a fit. I won't do it again. That's what she says. And so I say, okay, Sky, well, what happened? What happened? Why did you throw a fit? It could be something as simple as she hit her foot on a chair. Or it could be as simple as, you know, she didn't get the toy, you know? But these are the things that cause the meltdowns. Little tiny things like that trigger our kids, or at least mine, you know? And just like Sissy's saying, you know, 5 hours of ABA, oh my God, I'd be done, you know? So it was too much, you know? 5 hours, that's a lot of ABA. And, you know, you need a break. And, you know, he had to decompress. And, you know, sensory issues can be triggered or they could be kind of low at that point, but then they can be triggered by the fact that ABA then stopped and there's a transition. So it could have been where there's no sensory issues during ABA. ABA then is done, transition happens, he gets on the bus, he goes home. Then there's that transition and then behaviors can occur of meltdowns because that transition period is what triggered sensory-based issues and, you know, different things that our kids go through. And it's important to keep those in mind because these are things that will affect our kids in the classroom. All right? All right. So Taylor says, I'm literally going through this now with my son's school. I'm so sorry. If you want to elaborate on that, you're more than welcome to, and we can help you out, hopefully. Christina says, PPPN and win. Thank you. You took the course, though. You took my course. So we have Tess. Yes, gut intuitive. Oh, thanks, Erin. She posted my WhatsApp. So if you want to get in touch with me, yes, you can Facebook message me. But if you want to hands down get in touch with me and you want to make sure that we chat and I see your stuff. I'm always on WhatsApp. That's where I talk with my clients. And so it's just a really easy way to get me. And it's encrypted too. So I like that. I like the fact that things are private. So if you want to get a hold of me, all you have to do is download WhatsApp from your app store. It's completely free. And then you can either sign up through your email or sign up through Facebook, and that's it. Click the link to find me. Super easy. Hi Gina, how are you? And then we have Karina. I held it together and let it all out in the car. I'm assuming you had an IEP. We have Faye. Hello, hello. And then we have Christine. Hello. All right. Deborah says, what do you think a 10-year-old nonverbal autistic child with the cognitive of about a 5-year-old, do you mean an IQ like a 5-year-old, being sent to middle school also doesn't transition well? Well, they have to go, unless you're wanting to hold them back, but I wouldn't suggest that at 10. But then again, yeah, I wouldn't hold them back at 10. That's just a personal decision. You have to make that for, your child. But I always say if you're going to hold a child back, do it before 3rd grade or do it 3rd grade and under. I personally, as a mom, would not hold my child back 4th grade and up. I feel like, it could affect them emotionally because, sometimes we don't know how much they're processing, how much they know, what they're taking in. There was a long time that I didn't know how my daughter was processing things or what really did she get, until it started coming out more and more. So, you have a nonverbal child. That doesn't mean they don't process. It doesn't mean they don't understand. Many times they actually understand a ton because they're a lot more aware. It's kind of like a child who is deaf is a lot more aware of their surroundings around them. So I wouldn't. I would send him to middle school, and the school system still has to implement the IEP with fidelity. The school system still has to help him make progress, and he needs to make progress in lieu of his disability. So if any of your children are not making progress, then FAPE isn't happening. If you know anything about, it's called Indrew, ENDREW versus Douglas. It's one of the top cases, most recent cases in 2017, where a child did not progress, and they call it, his progression was de minimis. Okay, it's a French word for very little. And so his progress was diminished, very little. And, the case was lost in due process, lost at the circuit court. They won at Supreme Court, and it made kind of idea history, if you will, because it's now referenced and can be referenced, and, a child is not receiving a free and appropriate public education if they're not making progress. That's just fact. I don't care what the school says. And here's the thing too, is no school can say your child can't learn. That's not an okay excuse. It's not, they said that about my daughter in 2000. Gosh, it was a long time ago. It was a 2-year period where she went from, one score of her IQ up 24 points in a 2-year period. That's unheard of. What does that say? It means they didn't do shit. That's what happened. And all of a sudden, I'm working with her because I was scared to death when she was at that one area and IQ at that area. And so then all of a sudden she's learning, And so it's just important to understand the aspects of that so that you can, make the right decisions. But Deborah, I wish I could help you. I'm just telling you what I would do as a mom. but you gotta make that call. And then, be okay with it, because it's not the end of the world, whatever decision you make. And, your situation best. So, but just know, moving forward, he's going to have to transition one way or another. Why not now? And then if he's at a 5-year-old level, they still have to deal with it at the middle school. They still have to provide him FAPE, and you need to be on their butt, because now you're pushing into the higher grades. And, I love it when parents come to me when their kids are in kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, because then it's like, okay, we're going to do this, and then I have my older kids and I'm like, my younger kids' parents think I'm mean there. I'm really mean when it comes to my older kids, because time is of essence. And so it's important. It's just, the whole IEP process, guys, is important, but there's so much to it. I know I got a headache talking about it sometimes. But you guys have a wonderful evening. Hopefully you got a lot from this. And I don't know what the next live's going to be about. Anybody have any suggestions? Anybody? I'm trying to think. I've been trying to think about this all day. So if you guys have suggestions, post them below. Tell me what you want to know more about. I'm thinking that I'm going to talk about verbal memory. And I'm thinking I might talk about I've been thinking about talking about writing lately. Someone mentioned to me a Q&A. We could do that. And another thing I wanted to have a live about is social functioning, and then also sensory processing. So there's a lot of topics that I have on the table, but you guys, maybe I'll do a poll and you guys can vote which one's first. All right, so maybe we'll do that. All right, so I'm going to go live again on Thursday. Okay, today's Tuesday, right? So I'm going to go live again on Thursday. And so maybe I'll post a poll tomorrow to see which one you guys want to talk about. Christina Mills, I watch them all. I've been trying hard. I've talked to Raven too. The district I'm in doesn't care. They will take me through the ringer, and now I have PTSD, and their goodness gracious. I'm so sorry. Tess says, once you can take your emotions out of it. Yeah, you definitely got to do that. You cannot have emotions. That's like not humanly possible, but it's sad. Christine says, oh my God, like my son making a noise. Yes, he does. She does. It's kind of like a noise from her throat, but it only lasts like a second and then she stops. It's funny. Yes, he isn't progressing. We live in a small rural area. Yeah. You have a great night too, Tony. You're welcome, Christina. Thank you, Daisy. I appreciate that. Oh, retention and ESY. That's a good topic. Is that what you're suggesting, Christina? That's a good topic. I like that. Triennials and making sense of your child's data. Yeah, that's a good one too. And, moving into, kind of like between Christina and Christine, you guys have similar names, Christina and Christine. That's really what their names are, y'all. I think that's important because, you have, let's take retention out of it. All right, just for a second. You have ESY. All right, you have triennials, but triennials suck. Okay, forget about triennials. God. your child should be evaluated at minimum every year and a half. 3 years is too long. All right? You can't get 3 years back. You can't. And, you know, if your child was, say, evaluated at, say, 3, so then you're not going to evaluate them until they're 6, it's like you're really pushing what's going on when, the child's now in 1st grade when you could have given them certain services and accommodations in kindergarten, So it's really important to at minimum every year and a half. I tell parents, request an evaluation every year. Then you'll get it at that year and a half mark. It'll be done by that time because they have 60 days in which to finish it, 60 to 65. So just know that, that's your right. You have every right to request that. And you can give them a reason why, or you don't have to. All right? But I think it's wise to give them a reason why and be clear. Okay? It needs to be clear. It cannot be, well, because I feel like, she needs a one-on-one. You guys aren't providing what's needed for her. That's too general. All right? It needs to be, you got to think about what is the problem. All right? So you state the problem. Then you state what is happening, the action from the problem, okay? Whether it be they're not progressing, whether it be their behaviors are increasing, whatever the action is, all right? The problem, all right? Then you need to move from the problem, from what's happening, all right, to what the problem is that's causing this. And then you need to give them a solution, all right? So if this was provided, then this more than likely would not happen. And we can't just make a predetermination. We have to see. Sometimes we have to do a trial and error. We don't know what's going on. We have to figure this out. We have to have the whole picture. I'm big about the whole picture. You need to let them know. Say, hey, it'll let us as a team have the whole picture of the child. And I know you guys as a team want, my daughter to, have the education, services, and accommodations that she needs. So in order for that to happen, we have to have the whole picture as a team. So you got to just know how to approach it, and then go about things in that way. Okay? All right, guys, have a wonderful evening. WhatsApp me if you need anything. Come April, May, June, I'm kind of gonna go. I have some spots available, so if you're interested in revamping your IEP, figuring out, getting accommodations, getting services, getting, those evaluations started. I don't care, guys, if it means that we work together and then they start, and I always say within 30 days of school starting, and then you get your evaluation, and then we address the situation by September, October at the max, and then you're not waiting till December, January, February to get things going. We need to get the IEP started immediately. And if you get things going now, then right when school starts, they actually have to start, those days start, okay? So if you ask for, say, an evaluation, and, you have a meeting and so on and so forth, and, the days start ticking, and then it could stop for a period of time during summer, just evaluations, not other things. That day starts again from day 1 of school. So, things don't really necessarily stop, so to speak, and dependent on what's going on is if they'll even stop anything in the summer. I've never really had things come to a halt in the summer. So you need to make, because ESY is typically happening, and especially right now with COVID, all your children should be qualifying for ESY. If they're not, you need to address that right away. It's a now thing, and make sure that that's being addressed right away. Okay, so don't think, again, get that out of your mind that, oh, there's spring break, oh, there's summer. Summer is only like 2 months, guys, all right? You have a lot of work to do in 2 months. Like, think about it as your time to prepare with somebody or without and get that IEP on track. That's reviewing all of your documentation. That's asking your FERPA request. That still goes into play all summer. Then we review all your documents, we get everything in play, and we get things on the road, because it's so, so, so important. All right. So FERPA doesn't stop over the summer. All right. So just know that you gotta get that out of your mind, that summer is, our break, or we don't pay attention to the IEP. And that's when situations happen where school starts and your child's IEP or meeting isn't even until October, November, and then the IEP, you don't agree with the IEP, then you're going back to the table, then things aren't implemented till half the year. So don't do that. You guys know that. Don't do that. All right? Let's get these things in place. All right? And on point. All right. So I want you guys to have a wonderful evening. I've talked long enough. I said I'm going to go on there and I'm going to talk about executive function. That's what I told my husband. I'm going to go on there. I'm going to talk about executive function. I'm not going to be long. And, we'll hang out. Oh, well. All right. So you guys have a wonderful evening. All right. I will see you guys on Thursday. And make sure to message me if you need anything. I'll talk to you soon.